recourses whatsoever. Additionally, they often try to con people out of their money or simply rob people of their money, and they got into trouble for it, and justice was swift, often unfair, and often extremely brutal. So you have the slang phrase in Flash, I'm going to dance at my death. And dancing at your death means, but, you're dancing at the end of a rope. But like, they had kick the bucket is Flash. And a lot of these, and we still say kick the bucket. I mean, a lot of these things are actually still in the language permanently. And I thought that was amazing. And I would rather personally read a work of historical fiction that dives into the dialect of the time than read something that is deliberately sort of deliberately non-specific, so that you don't run into these anachronisms. And that is another way of doing it. Like, don't make anachronisms by making the language quite ordinary. But I thought it would be more fun to do this.
It was very fun. I wish I could say, let's now open it up for audience questions in Flash, but...
I don't speak Flash.
Because I'm not killing anyone or trying to cheat anyone, so there actually is no vocabulary. So we'll stay in English. You guys, questions for either one of us?
Yes, because we're really working on a lot of really fascinating projects as well. And Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes was an incredible, incredible exploration of how to make your mind work in extraordinarily honed and really insightful ways. And that was badass. And if you want to talk to her about con artists, she's in the middle of that right now. So.
Yeah.
Would there be a problem with reading Seven for a Secret first, or not?
Well, no. The problem with reading Seven for a Secret first is that some of the red herrings in the Gods of Gotham won't fool you. So the Gods of Gotham is the first one. So if you read the Gods of Gotham first, then there are red herrings that you might actually think, And if you read Seven for a Secret first, you will read every spoiler for the first book. So in that sense, you can read Seven for a Secret first, definitely, but it will be full of sort of spoilers for the first book. Yes.
One of the biggest problems I see when authors do trilogies or series is that towards the end they have a tendency to sort of lose sight of their characters, and I find myself reading things where the characters aren't doing what's sort of inherently true to them. How do you stay true to your characters?
I think that, that's a great question. Honestly, I write the books for character. I don't write them for the crime. Like, I don't write them for the sort of, I don't impose plots on my characters. I think, what is really the worst person you could do to this person that you love so much? And I'm like, oh, that would suck. I sit down and I say, well, that would be terrible for them to go through. It would reveal so much of their character if they had to go through that with this particular other person, and then their relationship would change and it would grow, and it would be, so like, I write things very much based on how terrible I can be to the characters in the first place. So I think that often you can see that in series, and I do see that in series that sort of just they go interminably. You can see that happen for sure, and I think that even if you think that the crime aspect of it is more interesting in this one book or in this other book or in this one, like of the three of them, or including Dust and Shadow, whichever one is your favorite crime plot, whichever one fooled you, like, rock on. That's great. But like, I'm writing them into terrible situations so that I can really get at the guts of the people who are involved. And so it's not a problem I've experienced. If it ends up being a problem with the third book, then I'll just apologize in advance. But but it really is about relationships when I'm writing these. So I think that might be a different focus than for some series writers. And then again, you look at J.K. Rowling, and I sobbed my eyes out. How about it? Snake loved Lily, and I was just like, Lily. So it's one of those things that I'm like, I was a mess. I was like, I was eating lunch at a Pret a Manger or something. It was horrifying. I'm reading the 7th Harry Potter book, like in public, sipping tea, eating a sandwich, and I was like, oh God! And turned into a horrible puddle. So like that's my model, I guess. Yeah. As far as characters go in the series.
What drew you to a sibling conflict as opposed to another kind of relationship conflict that you could have used? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I'm curious about that too. I have one.
She's answered the question.
I have one, so I can speak to that, I guess, a little bit more.
You could just say it's autobiographical.
I get along with I have a little brother, and I'm really proud of him. He's brilliant. He's better educated than I am. He's a fitness trainer, and I'm not. He's awesome. Yeah, I have a good relationship with my little brother. I think that with siblings, the initial germ of the idea came from a plot point that I had to include, and that turned into something that for me was absolutely magical. I needed Timothy to have his own moral compass because I find that more interesting. And I was like, how could somebody who is not involved with politics be part of the police force and yet be a free man? And this was the question. I was like, I need Timothy to be a free man specifically, and I need him to own his own sort of, I'm going to do this for you, but I'm not going to do that, and then I'm going to, do all the squirrely middle bits. So I thought, how do I get him on the police force? And actually, Gabriel, my husband, who's right over there, was brilliant, and he said, nepotism. And I was like, yeah! Nepotism! Perfect, thank you. Fist blow up time. So then I thought about that, and I was like, okay, if his brother's on the police force, and then I started brainstorming, and I was like, what if you made this character, and I'll never, ever, ever, I don't know if I'll ever write a character I like better than Valentine Wilde, to be honest with you. He's my favorite, and I was like, what if I wrote a character who seemed to be entirely id-driven, who you give them every vice you can think of, including vices that now aren't even vices. I mean, he's queer. He's a morphine addict. That's definitely not helpful. He has a very long list of transgressions as far as Timothy, is concerned. I was like, what if you give him every single sort of issue that you can think of and make him seem to be the most selfish and id-driven character in the entire world, and what if that person does everything they do for their family? Everything. Like, every decision he makes is for someone else. And what if that is actually the least selfish character, like, ultimately, in the series? And I loved that idea. And I loved continuing him. I love writing him, and it's really fun. So, like, that sibling thing, it came out of necessity that I needed Timothy to not be involved with Tammany Hall. Mm-hmm. Then I was like, what if someone was so entrenched with Tammany Hall because they wanted to save someone's life? And that was the reason they did it. And he talks about that at the beginning of 7 years. Like, that was the thing. Was you?
Yeah.
All done. Everyone wants to go home and start reading 7 for a Secret now, right?
Yeah. You can ask us about Sherlock Holmes too if you want. You probably already know everything about Sherlock Holmes. So. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you all. And if you want, we are both signing books.
Yes.
After this.
If you would like a mastermind, or if you would like one of mine. Yay!
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. This is great. told you to do, so that I was going to deliver, was they're going to hang out here and sign books. Sam over there, if you want to pick one up. But, thank you again, and
Thank
let's
you
just clap
for
one
having
more
us.
time, you two.